Valerie Holgan, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today. And I would love to introduce you now. And you have spent 35 years exploring the mind-body connection and metaphysics, and 23 years as a licensed counseling professional. You are a seasoned therapist, coach, and metaphysical practitioner with 23 years of experience. Originally from the US, but you lived and worked in 7 countries, so you understand the transition well. You love assisting people to move from survival to thriving through a holistic, integrated approach. Other specialties of yours are transformational travel experiences and group trainings in resilience, skills, and embodied living. Your kind approach to getting to know your clients and tailoring the support to client specific needs are core to your counseling approach. You have many certificates and qualifications, so I'm going to mention just some. Master solution focused therapist, expressive therapist, compassionate inquiry trained, qualifications, master degree in counseling from University of Vermont, psychology degree, virtuous parenting trainer, and others. So I'm
Yeah.
excited that we're gonna have this conversation. We know each other from Flame Holders Group, where after we did the meditation together of your visit in Peru, which was for me very powerful. So then I was like, during that meditation, I was like, oh, invite her to a podcast, talk about what we're gonna talk about. Like I got questions during the meditation. So welcome. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here. So it's fun to share this information and passionate about travel and sacred spaces and land energy and all the ways that we interact with the world and create ourselves through different experiences. So
Yeah. Before we go to different topics, tell me how this all started for you.
ah um yeah, I've been thinking about that. How do I shorten a very busy life story? I've moved a lot.
We
I've done
have
a lot of
time.
things. So I've always been a nature child. I was always connected to things. I was lucky enough to grow up in Oregon in the US, which has a lot of beautiful places, in a family that camped and spent time roaming beaches and collecting shells. And I've always been into rocks and crystals. And my dad was a rock hound, so we got to go get petrified wood and do a lot of things like that. I wound up doing crystal therapy at one point and things. So I think that, that just kept generating. And then in my late teens, my mom had a friend who was an intuitive healer and also trained as a Lakota whip woman, which is very unusual for a white woman. And
Okay.
she had been adopted into the tribe. So she'd done the full medicine training, which is very intensive, and she was considered an elder. So I had the gift of getting to train with her and just sort of classes and then having the experiences. Then I started doing things like dowsing training, using a pendulum, doing some of my own card readings, doing some stuff with crystals. I was into the new age stuff way back. So I've been doing this, yeah, probably since I was, yeah, 16, 17, 18, and I'm 54 now. So, and I'm an
Okay.
avid reader. So I've been reading spiritual books back from one of the resources today is from Barbara Hand Clow when it first came out, Hands of Light, Energy Healing. And yeah, through it all, I've just had a natural instinct for energy places. And I didn't even realize it was much of a thing because it just is so normal to me. And now I'm taking people out, doing some energy work with them, doing like the guided visualization. And I'm like, oh, okay, this seems to have an impact for people. And
Yeah.
um, in addition to my studies in psychology. So I was doing various kind of alternative things, lived in Byron Bay, Australia at some point, married, had a kid, was working in a tarot reading and doing some of that. And then I really wanted the formal training. I felt like it was important to honor both sides. That's one of the things I kind of pride myself in is I'm a very practical person. I want to make sure people have real strategies that they can use that make a difference. Um, and I love the study of the mind, but I found that the energy was where it hooked. You know, when you
Mhm.
know all the right things, but you're still doing it anyways. And so I went back to some of the practices that I'd been doing, got some more certifications in like shamanic work, more training in kinesiology, some of the mindfulness and more modern trainings with biofeedback and the Heart Math Institute. So a whole mix of things. I tend to
Yeah.
keep learning. And as you said, I've got multiple approaches. But what's really fun now is starting to work with that. And I've been doing school counseling through a lot of this time, the last 23 years. So that practice has given me a real exposure to development and what influences our growth and our health or less health, and how people are impacted by family dynamics and then living around the world. I lived in 7 countries now, very different places, Singapore, Venezuela. Australia multiple times, both sides of the US, which is different cultures.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in Amsterdam. And yeah, so just starting to bring it all together and really wanting to share this sort of side thing that I do with people and then doing it more full on into the spiritual practices. I did it for like 3 years as a practice, and then I went full time, and then I went back into the schools, and so now I'm doing this again, and I've added the travel, transformational travel, and doing some of these experiences on
Okay.
the land. So,
So, can you explain to me like this traveling therapy? What's the right?
okay, transformational travel. It's actually
Okay.
a new
So,
trend in travel.
okay.
Um, and the idea is people want to travel with a bit more intention and with
Yeah.
like-minded people and for a bit more of a curated purpose. So not just to necessarily go see sacred sites or a beautiful place or have some food, but maybe if you're doing short practices or learning things along the way, they're very different. I mean, you can do all sorts of different practices
Okay.
with the transformational travel. What I'm looking at is helping people have a joyful experience because I don't want to just sit around and kind of, oh, we're going to be very serious about this, which can happen and is good at times. But, I think a little dose of some good food and some beautiful nature and
Yeah.
everything in there with the skills and with the group practices, because there's also a lot of research on what they call the power of eight, if you've ever heard of that book.
No.
Um, Anyways, a woman has spent a lot of time doing double-blind studies and research trying to understand the power of group practices. And
Okay.
she has done different things with intention and changing even political situations. It's very fascinating. And
Okay.
she's found that if you get a group of 8 people together, then you exponentially shift things. So when you're in a transformational travel group, you have the power of a group, you have the power of the land, which is we're going to talk about. These are like amplifier sections of the planet where you get
Mhm.
all these crossovers of the natural flow of energies on the planet. They're called ley lines, dragon lines, different things, chi, prana in different
Mhm.
places. And that allows you to kind of break through things or have bigger downloads or upgrades or whatever, um,
Mhm.
because you just have more energy to do it with.
Okay. Sounds great. You prepared. We talked about it, and you prepared presentation.
Yeah.
Which with the topics that we talked about before, and these three topics we'll discuss mainly. We'll discuss other stuff too, but sacred geometry, stargates, and grid work or grids, right? Because I'm familiar with that, but the power of work, like group work, let's say like that, that we did on Peru, it
Yeah.
was really for me uh, a new like how would say a new view, a new uh, from I see it from the other side. I forgot the word in English, but
From
from the
like
other.
the participant side, how
Yeah,
do you?
yeah, because I prefer doing it alone. All
Hmm.
these kind of meditations or all that, but this first time was like, and was so, I got so many messages that I was like, oh, okay. And so if you would like to share it now, and we can start with
Hmm.
this sacred
Okay.
geometry, and we'll
Did
just,
you have, I mean, just because this is a
yeah,
fun conversation, were there any specific things? So, what you're describing is I did a presentation on a trip I did through Peru to a bunch of the different sacred sites there that are part of a
yeah.
gate or a cluster that's like one of the main ones on the planet, and it includes well-known places like Machu Picchu and a few less known ones around that area in Sacred
Mhm.
Valley, and then a final meditation at an anchor point to this ascension portal, or expanded energy flow point into the cosmos. I mean, you can use all these words, but I think because that's another thing I'm passionate about is I love quantum physics and I love science and I love all the ways that you can use different language to describe this. And I
Yeah.
think they're all important, but the the piece that is connecting all of it is like the planet is an organism. It breathes. It has veins. It has water flow. It has areas that things collect and things disperse. And we
Mhm.
don't necessarily think of it that way, but it is an organism and it has these areas. And some of them, science is coming to the conclusion energy is consciousness. The planet is going to have a consciousness that we can tap into and then increase our own consciousness
Mhm.
because I call it Earth a she. She's a lot bigger than us and she's a great big amplifier and we get disconnected. So that's a primary point of everything I do. And I think in the Flame Holders group with Becca, she does such an amazing job of setting us up with the grounding and the connecting to our 48 dimensional shields. So, we not only had the fact that I'd been there and could share that vibration because I had been there and I had the
Mhm.
pictures for people to connect to, but we also had a really awesome group of people to work with that were very,
Yeah.
tuned in. And that makes a difference. I will just say that,
No, no,
that
no, no.
was
It's
not
great
me.
that it's great that you mention all of that because for me at the moment, they're not like, okay, you said, Earth is a living organism. For me, that is like since I was young, I knew that, right? So this is like sometimes for me, some things are very natural or, you know, obvious that
Yeah.
maybe I should say it more often here that for some others isn't. But I have a one question came up while you were talking. So how do you see all the, let's call it like the spiritual work or alternative work,
Mhm.
whatever, and science? How close is science now? Okay, let's say uh, to explain one each like spirituality
So one
and
of my favorite books has just been republished. Oops, Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions by
okay,
Barham Clow. And she literally takes the
okay.
different frequencies with which dimensions are. It's literally a vibration, and we're going to look at that in the PowerPoint of the
Mhm.
visuals of what sound does. So they're
Mhm.
coming to understand that sound creates matter, and the density or the frequency, which are slightly different
Mhm.
things, but makes it what we experience as tangible. So different layers of the system at different frequencies um, operate a little differently, but they all nestle within each other and they all, in an amazing, divine way, honestly,
Yeah,
like beyond our human comprehension. That's how I use that word. Um, they work. And it's like all of these layers, just like our energy body has multiple layers. The basics are your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and then you go into the Kalantic stuff, and we're talking 15 dimensions and layers, and we talk about, grounding to the crystal core of the earth and do that breathing activity. And we start out with 12 dimensions, which are the ones we can access most easily in our human senses and our, higher senses. And then we can connect even further. And these systems nest within each other. So, to answer your question more directly, it depends on which science you're talking about. Are you talking about the one they teach in school? That's 100 years old.
No, no,
The
I'm
stuff that's
aware
out
that.
now
Yeah,
is got really pretty much all of it, if not all of it, what our human minds can put its
together.
five senses around.
Yeah.
And this is why, as Becca talks about, imagination is so important, using our meditations, our curiosity, our openness, because it
Mhm.
it doesn't all fit, because we are given very limited information and our senses give us limited information. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is talk about the light spectrum and like what animals can see compared to what we can see.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, and I love the fact that I I'm terrible about the numbers, but what they have found in science is that matter, what we think is solid, is not even 1% of what's out in the universe. And all of the other stuff is the plasma, the chi, the dark matter. There's lots of different words for it, but it's the more feminine, more magnetic principle. And then what we see is the more electric, more
Mhm.
masculine principle. And there's lots of societies that talk about this as far as culturally and different ways of looking at it. But it's actually getting really close.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the work of Dr. Emoto, the water, the guy
Master
that,
Emoto, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I did an
Yeah.
article on him and it's like, I mean, he proved everything, how much it's important what we say, how we say it,
Have you
uh,
seen Veda Austin's work?
who? Say again?
Veda Austin?
No, no, I don't know. I
Oh,
don't.
she's done a whole nother level. You really should
Yeah,
check this out.
I
So she
will.
works with third stage freezing of water.
Okay,
So she half freezes the water. So
okay,
it's like a third stage. So or fourth, I guess it is, of water. It's sort
okay.
of like amniotic fluid or intercellular water has the same consistency. And she's getting amazing pictures, and she's actually getting an alphabet, like
Wow.
hieroglyphic style pieces of information. And she's just put a book out that's incredible. She's trying to avoid Amazon. So it's, not cheap, but you can see a lot of her stuff online. She talks about things, and
Okay,
it's really cool. So
okay.
like as far as consciousness and water,
Yes.
and as we talk about with the flame holders group and how important the elements are. Um, so these are all pieces of how all of this comes together. And that's why, the Chinese do the five elements. We've got the Vedic systems that talk about, which kind of, you know, type you have. So there's almost every tradition has an understanding of the importance of the elements. And it's not just the fact that we're going to get wet or, lightning's going to strike us
Exactly.
or, it's a lot deeper than that. And that, yeah, the power of water and what it does is pretty cool. That's one of my
Yeah, yeah.
favorite little nerdy
For
things.
me, the water is. I just for me is the so transformational. Every time I'm there or by the beach, like I'm now, it's like I'm a different person. It's completely.
Yeah, I
So
can't get it.
yeah, because we have like
Power
that
of water.
kind of, what's
It's
the
my blurred
title?
background, isn't it? Okay. The Living Language of Water is what it's called.
Okay,
And she has amazing photos in here and she's an artist, so
okay.
it's really phenomenal. I don't really have
It's okay.
permission to share it, but yeah, there's amazing stuff in there, and a very cool rabbit hole to go down.
Oh, yeah, I love rabbit holes. I'll dive in that one for sure. Okay, let's go to the presentation or
Okay,
the slideshow so people can see it while you will explain to us a little bit.
love to.
Okay.
All right. So, um, I just started with this slide. This is from my Peru presentation. This is a place called Red Valley. It's near Cusco, which is up in Sacred Valley. And this particular set of mountains in this area really felt connected to the higher energy areas of the gates or the cloud cities, as they're called. And it's just one of those places that just it's expansive and just lifts you. You know, you're also standing on, red oxide earth, which is full of minerals and, the fresh air and sun. And not a lot of air. It's pretty high up there. I think it's 4,000 meters at this point. It's really high. But yeah, and that's part of what being in these places brings to us. It brings this energy and also opening us up because we get so, down into our phones, into our work, into things. Even with meditation, that's where going out of your sort of daily routine for a while can be really helpful, or just even a tree, just going to nature and being with even the smallest part of nature, because it's always in that present moment. And the, again, the past and the future, they're kind of not here. They're not what we're living. And so we lose a lot of our time and energy to these things when we get stuck there. So yeah, I just thought it'd be a good place to start and talking about what this can do for us. Um,
We had this one picture at the meditation for Peru, right?
yeah, a similar
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
It's pretty cool.
yeah. I
I'm
remember.
trying to make sure. Why am I? I'm still new to this as far as there we go. Got it. I'm getting making it move forward. So we talked about ley lines. There's different things they're called. There's acetonial lines, there's
Yeah.
grid lines, there's ley lines. And I think a general understanding is again, just like our body has certain areas that the energy flows in, there's the blood flow, there's the chi lines that have been mapped through all the
Mhm.
Chinese medicine and meridian points. So you can think of these kind of like those subtle energy points on the body. Only they are multi-layered, just like we have energy centers and chakras that have multiple layers that are actually outside of our physical body, and our energy body goes several meters past our physical body, and that's for everybody, whether you're aware of it or not. Um, and the earth has energy above it and below it. And on the surface, there's something called the Schumann resonance, which is like a heartbeat of the earth. It's increasing. So if people are agitated, the solar flares, the solar maximum moving into this part of the galaxy we're in. We're getting more energy, which is great for evolution and is also stirring the pot. So anything that had settled into the bottom of your system out in the dark corners, it's like getting the big stick, stirring it up right now. Um, and so this is not super easy to read, but it gives you the idea that there's this central area across the planet where there's some really clustering of horizontal lines. There's also other areas where you get a really strong diagonal set of lines. And then there's areas with less dense um, lines. And now these are just the bigger ones. And then the points that you can't see super well on here, those are hubs or stargates. Again, this is a place that's more galactically connected. There are some points that are more just Earth-based. There's, smaller lines, bigger lines. And Robert Temple's work talks about the
Oh,
plasma. And then there are other, Rory Duff talks about the ley lines from more the English tradition. And he's been measuring them with dowsing rods for a long time. And he's noticed they were progressing. And we're now in a period where it used to be only around a few days around the equinoxes and solstices that we'd get a surge around the lines and they'd get bigger. Well, because of the extra solar input, which is coming into the earth and bouncing back to the core and energizing everything more, the whole noonosphere, I think is what it's called, if I've got the term right, which is the energy bubble around the Earth that holds us in space and keeps us from getting fried. You know, that one is getting more energized. So these ley lines also are spreading. And so now we're actually in a field where these lines are still accurate, and that's the most intense place, but they're actually spread out now even
Mhm.
more. So, it's kind of fun to look at a certain area. So there's this area here, which is in Europe. There's a lot of known areas here, maybe the Michael and Mary line people might be familiar with, Stonehenge, some of that. I was down here exploring this group down in Peru, which has a couple major stargates and other major ley lines. And another thing to notice is when they cross both ways and up and down. So then you've got an even more intense crossing. So some places they're just straight up and down more, and they're crossing like this would be a major spot. But over in these areas where the arc hubs are, you're getting them coming in from multiple directions, and that's intensifying more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put here on the slide, we live in condensed electromagnetic fields with cross points and vortexes, and you can think of them as places that spin when they meet each other, or higher or lower amplitude. And that's just all the time, wherever you are. You may not realize it, but it can be measured.
Yep. When you mentioned Schumann resonance and Temple, Professor
Hmm.
Temple, I watched his interview, and I was
Yeah.
just amazed by his approach to how he explains things. And
He's like a storyteller. I tell everyone get
yeah,
to the audiobook. He's
he-
so fun to listen to.
he's so different from all the other PhD scientists with his
Mhm.
approach and like
Yeah.
less serious approach, let's call it like that. Like for me, it was like I could listen to you for next 5 hours. Like, and
Amazing,
it's just
right?
yeah, it's just the topics, the way he explained what plasma is and everything is plasma and how it's measured, and I was just like, okay. It was really he's really for me like he's the next. I have a couple other two books that I have to finish right now, but he's next. So his book is next for sure.
I um I finished that book in 3 days. I was so excited, but
Yeah.
I'm a nerd.
So yeah.
And I've
So
been reading about quantum physics and stuff for 30 years. So
yeah.
I mean that gives a background, but it was one of the books that I really felt like gave me new information. And
Hmm.
like the plasma cloud that's near the planet that could be an intelligence that's not being talked about. I mean, just
Yeah.
fascinating stuff. You're like, whoa, so really took me again, another brain stretch. I love it when I can find a brain stretch.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's like all the knowledge you have from before when it's like it's kind of connect to that one. Huh, okay. Another layer to the knowledge and everything we do is like I love those moments. Yeah. Just for
and
the people who are watching about Schumann resonance and Professor Temple, you have on the website bluemagic77.com under people and their knowledge. It's an article
nice,
with all the links and videos, and you can dive in. So
fabulous,
yeah,
great.
please continue.
Okay, so as I said, we were looking at a flat view of the top of the Earth planet.
Mm,
And we've got to remember that energy is not bound by space or time. That's a thing that quantum physics has proven.
yeah.
So, you might have heard of spooky action at a distance where things are linked. You can do things on one side of the planet, and a researcher on the other side of the planet will get it instantaneously. This helps understand when we do the meditations, how does that work when we're all in different places, sitting in front of a computer, or just tuning in at a specific time with a specific intention? And we don't even necessarily all know each other, but if we have an anchor point or a center thing to hook to or an intention, it can work. Um, and I just say this because it's nice to link these things and understand a little bit how this translates into what we experience. So
Mm,
this is um, something to do with, in this particular picture, with ascension mechanics and the idea that we are able to raise our frequency, and there are certain points on the planet that are places that are portals or gates for that. And this particular one is from also some of our studies with Becca, and then in the Flame Holders group, and also um, part of what I did with the Peru meditation, because this particular one
mm,
is showing the Cusco area, Machu Picchu, and Corral, which is a very old, fairly less known site that predates the pyramids there. And this idea is that you have energies below the earth and energies above the earth, and those translate potentially into other um, frequency civilizations potentially, in that we can't see or perceive them in the same way. They could be in a different bandwidth. This is some of the ideas of why we might see things sometimes and not others, or why there can be a group of people and someone will see the UFO and somebody else won't. It might be that their frequency or their awareness is tuned more finely, just like on a radio
exactly.
dial.
Yeah.
You have to be on the right
Yeah.
channel to be able to see it.
Yep.
Um, so when you go into these places, just think you went from 3D to like, whoa, suddenly you've got 15D access. So this is some of the fun of going to these places. Um, so yeah, this is sometimes called a gate or a vortex point, or in this case, an ascension passage. There's lots of different language and people that have studied this and given different frameworks for us. Did you
Mhm.
have a question about this one?
For me, maybe if you can explain, because we can't see it really well, right? So
Yeah,
people,
no.
but it's okay. But maybe because actually I had a couple of questions, but you already answered them, like the frequency and how we see it.
Yeah.
But maybe a question,
Yeah.
how can people, for example, raise their vibration? Maybe to see if somebody's like, oh, I would really like to see an UFO, whatever, or I would like to go to um, another underworld, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever is there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
how they can do it? Because maybe if we can go to individual a little bit, just for to a
Sure.
person.
I mean, again, even my psychology research talked about this. So there have been studies about the frequency, the hertz of an emotion.
Yep.
And there's literally, we're going to look at some sound patterns from cymatics, which is looking at sound on a board and what formations it
Mhm.
makes. And the basics are, if it feels neutral to good, to bliss, is the ultimate love, and bliss or the highest frequencies. And this is a challenge in the human world with the human body and politics and bills and feeding ourselves and all of that. But the idea is that you get better and better at connecting to your core, because there's a really cool secret is you have a quantum nuclear reactor inside every single cell in your body.
Mm.
And if we get away from the noise and we tap back into especially our heart field, which is the center of a torus donut that goes around us, a little bit like some of this picture, um, that gives us the higher frequency.
Mhm.
So when we get scattered into our head, we get into our survival fears in our gut. When we get pulled off center, and literally this can be, I think felt it energetically. I've felt it in people's auras when I've done energy healings. I can get a picture of it in my head. Sometimes you can literally be beside yourself, literally
Mhm.
energetically pulled out of your own energy field
Mhm.
and just kind of barely in your body. So it's a it's a complex question, but the core of it is just some simple breathing practices, focusing on your heart, catching your negativity when it happens, breathing through it, letting it go. This isn't denial or false positivity,
No.
but it's about witnessing the emotion, witnessing it from a more compassionate place and a more curious place. 'Cause then that doesn't drop your frequency. So if you can think about this in a practical terms, can you remember being around a friend who's in a really bad place and then you're like, oh yeah, oh, and you think you need to like be there with them and you go away just like, oh, I can't do it anymore, you know, and you have to sort of shake it off. Well, that's literally a frequency.
Mm.
And our heart pulse wave goes out around our body. So, who you're around, are you in nature? Do you have bare feet on the ground? So you can plug into this great big generator we're standing on, who is always pulsing a high frequency. Are you connecting up to the galactic center where it's always a high frequency? Then do you tap into your heart and feel it? So we can do a quick meditation at the end, like I said, if
Yeah,
you want,
we will
because
do.
I think that's what I find the most effective is giving people a feeling sense of it, at least in some small part, because depending on where you're at, you might feel it
Mhm.
more or less, and all of it's okay. But yeah, it's a lot easier to understand from the inside, don't you think?
Yeah, you need to feel it in the end of the
Yeah.
day. I had two guests when I was in Slovenia. It's in Slovenian. It's not in English, but I forgot the name of they made he got actually a download. He's also been around shamans and like so
Yeah.
they made a device that you connect to your heart
Mm-hmm.
and then you put your headphones on and you actually hear beating of your heart
Okay.
and then you go into the meditation
Hmm.
and like you do it for individual or a couple, right?
Okay.
And then you get all how to explain like you go to those meditative places with listening to your heart and it's really unique and very weird at the beginning for the couple of minutes because
Okay.
you listen your beating of your heart, right?
Yeah.
And I will translate that to in English at some point, but it's everything that you were talking about. This is what they were talking about. They were talking about how our heart is everything, and everything goes around us. The frequency of the heart and everything is connected to there. So if we work from the heart,
Yes.
then it's you can see the progress, right? Also for they did a measurement for grounding
Yep.
and was so fast that there's like they couldn't measure it. It was so fast that recharge your body so fast when you are barefoot
Yeah.
ground that they're like, yep, and it's quick. So yeah, 10-15 minutes a day or a couple of minutes, it will give you much more than anything
Yeah.
else, I think.
You
So
can look up earthing,
yeah,
and there's a whole technology about this
yeah.
that's fascinating. And that's the other thing is, trees are a
Mhm.
representation of this connectedness and have the branches in the air and the roots in the ground. And so they're really also amazing anchors. Just go lean against a tree, hug one, give it,
I,
put your bare
I
feet on the bark.
I was doing that and it was really strange at the beginning for me.
Yeah.
It's like what I'm doing, like somebody's gonna see me, then after a while you don't care. But the amount of calmness that I got from that was like, oh, okay. Like, okay, now I understand why people do it, right? And
Yeah.
but you need to feel it. It's really hard to
You do.
explain because it's so hard to explain this, especially if people are watching, they don't understand this, like, oh, you're hugging trees or whatever. But yeah,
But
So
just think about it in relation to humans. You're
yeah,
around a tense, stressed, upset human, you can feel it. You're around a really calm person,
yeah,
or if you have the good fortune to be around like a master meditator or someone like Amma, who's a hugging saint, and it's just, whoa, you can feel
mhm,
it. And trees, their job is to breathe
yeah.
and create air, you know. So they're very present. Okay, so what else do we have here? We have
Okay,
so these are considered arc hubs,
okay,
and they are again major connection points. So when you saw those places where there were multiple overlays,
okay.
um, and they're some of them well known. I mean, Bermuda, Stonehenge, Bali, Ayers Rock. So there's different ones. Antarctica has one up in Seattle, down near Mesa Verde, and there's different types of these. But it's interesting to look at how they form these geometries and how they move. So here's a closer look at this Arc-Hub cluster gate with Stonehenge here in the middle.
So
And
what are these circles that like blue, yellow, so on?
mhm.
Okay,
So it's kind of a busy picture, but basically there is the orange ones, like the biggest
yeah,
circle. If you follow that in, each layer
okay,
is closer and more intense to the center. And this
yeah,
particular center is Stonehenge.
okay.
So, and as you look at the geometries, what you'll see is on that circumference, there's points that have other intersections
I see
that
it.
are on certain diagonals. And those create other places that are energy points and gates. And some of them are even in the ocean. So they're not all on land. Um, and these are linked with some of the studies of sort of downloaded physics and stuff that is from the energetic synthesis and from these various people that have connected to this,
Mm.
and it's connected to the tree of life and these different sacred geometries. So I don't know if you've seen the center point of the Akasha symbol. It's got those little dots on the middle. So
Yeah,
if you
I
look
have
closely,
actually, I have it on my desktop as a desktop picture.
so
So
you can see it pretty better here that the different
yeah.
colors and the different dots, you can start to
Mhm.
see that it has that similar pattern. And so it's one of the patterns that is part of nature. And it creates, like when you see this white one, you can see the star, which is in churches. Funny thing, you know, you see this in coats of arms. It's a sacred geometry shape of how energy amplifies. So each one of these rings is like the frequency pattern, like you drop a stone in water and it has ripples. So
Mm.
you can think of it like these are the ripples coming out of this gate. And then the outer ones, the furthest part of this particular cluster. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does to me. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so then the other cross points here are the major lines. And then you'll notice like this one crosses into
Mhm.
areas that you might recognize. It goes down to France. There's just
Mhm.
different. Sorry, this one's in France. This is Spain. My geography is a bit American. It's a little sad.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, and there's different areas that then are fun to visit because you can find them on maps like this, and then you can go and you're like, oh, this is fun. It's like sitting, I don't know, have you ever been next to a really hot, big power line and you can literally hear the buzz and feel it a little bit? Like
Yeah,
one of the big generator power lines? It's a similar thing, only a natural version, and it's more subtle. So you have to be a bit more tuned in, but it's the same idea. You're in
I've
an
been
amplified
since
area.
since I was young. I've been to different. energetic place, like with places with energy. We have in Slovenia one hill where you have like 8 or 9 different energy points, and each one is good for something else in your body.
Nice. Yeah.
And just always the example I give is like during the winter, it's snow a meter high, and there's like one of the points is like there's everywhere snow, just not there. And you put your hands there, and it's so hot that on basically on on the ground, and it's so hot that like you have to remove your hands because so I can imagine that this is just like 10,
This is
100
an
times
out breath
more.
point
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
planet.
yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah.
sending
So
energy and chi out through that
yeah.
area. And one of my favorite geomancers, Marco Poganic, is from your country.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
from
know?
Slovenia. I actually, when you mentioned it, I didn't know of him. So I was like, I checked him out. Yeah, I went on his website and saw his work, and yeah,
He's been doing stuff for a long time, and he
for a
does
long
these
time.
amazing art sculptures on stone, and he calls it lithopuncture. So acupuncture for the earth. Magical stuff.
Yes,
Really interesting. Yeah.
it's completely something new to me. Like something new for me. So I'll look more into him at some
Yeah,
point.
I've been following him for about 15 years. I keep saying I'm going to train with him before he goes. He's getting up into his probably late 80s, I imagine. But his daughter's doing the work too. Okay, so that's some of that. This is what you might be more familiar with
Okay.
from the more Celtic traditions of ley lines. So these are where there were tracks and pilgrimages, the Carmen de
Mhm.
Santiago, these various ones. This is called the Michael and Mary line because there's one that's more electric is the masculine, more yin, more magnetic is the feminine, the Mary line. And they weave this dance together, which is really interesting because it's like the energy flow through the caduceus or the spinal chakra points. So the earth and us have a lot of similarities. And these points where they intersect are a bit like our chakras or about energy points that have different aspects at times. And this is just a graphic I found online, and I liked the fact that it showed a few of the pictures along here. And we're going to talk about Glastonbury and Aberbury here. I was fortunate enough to be there on solstice a couple of years ago now. And yeah, that was a lifelong bucket list thing
Okay.
that I got to do. And we'll be going back in a month and a half, myself and Amber doing a bit of a journey. But this is interesting to see because again, it's a major line. It gives you some ideas. There will be cross lines and smaller lines mixed in here. It's just showing the more known one. And these are places that have been used as far as we can track history into the Stone Ages. People were putting, they can feel it. And when you don't have all the lights and devices and all of that, you feel it even more. So people would go to these places for ritual and ceremony for various purposes
Mhm.
throughout time, really.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, this is the old history in what actually, I mean, through centuries is now in this picture, the history. So, but they knew all of it, where to put it, why put it there, and they knew all of it. So I
Yep.
mean, if you look through history, all the major cities, all the major, churches are on some vortex or some energy points. They're not there for no reason, like
And they're even specifically, interestingly enough,
yeah,
in the UK, there are female named saint churches on the Mary Line, and there are literally Michael's churches and the male saints churches on the male line. I mean, they knew this stuff, and
yeah,
they always put their power places, the Vatican, these places are put on power centers for a reason.
Mm.
Some of which might have been neutral or let's connect to spirit, and others might have been let's gather the power into our church, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, there's different theories why they're there. Yeah, I agree with that.
And it might have been both. But
Yeah.
yeah, so there's some fun places, you probably heard of various ones of them. But yeah, that I thought would be a little bit interesting to see that. So here is some drawings from one of my favorite books, Sacred Geography, from Marko Poganic, who is a
Mhm.
Slovenian man who has done some amazing work, such as like creating a peace installment in the four different corners of countries. And yeah, just really interesting. So um, often these lines are called dragon lines.
Okay.
So dragon was associated with power and chi and the elements and maybe spiritual creatures or one-time physical creatures. I mean, there's many layers of looking into dragon energy that you can go into. What we've got here is on the left of the screen, we've got this one, which shows different paths in to this area that where the energy pools. There's called dragon paths. Um, and then this is a more 3D rendition where you might have another junction, because sometimes they're like a T junction. It's not always four. It can be three, it can be two, it can be different things. And this is the vertical pillar. So you'll often have a vertical channel. So if you think about things coming in, and even in water, when it spins, it gets that vortex. So you've got to think multi-layered with this stuff. And I really like his rendition. He calls them holons. So
Okay.
he says they form bubbles, just like our aura is a circle. So each area will have a intelligence, and a bubble around it, a holon, and there will be elementals in charge of those areas. There'll be layers that go further out. There are deep earth ones. There's ones that are more up above the earth. So again, we can see things like the pictures of some of the stones here in Avebury, which I think this one looks like an angel, so that's why I put that one there. But these are the concrete things we can see, but we've got to imagine that Avebury has a whole energy presence that is layered. It's not just what you see in the stones and on the earth. And this is a side view of what he imagines and pictures as like a ley line, the inside of it. So he
Okay.
actually says that the energy travels down in balls, jumping from this to this at the top. But it has, these different areas. So you think of even electric lines, they'll have a center core and then they'll have an outer layer. And it's very much like a fish spine, so you got to remember that nature replicates itself as
Yeah.
above, so below, as within, without. So there's a lot of things that you can, in the non-physical realms, that you can understand through your imagination and understanding what you see around you and how that might translate. Not everything does, but some things do. So I thought this was kind of an interesting representation
It
of
definitely,
like,
you see it more once you go vibrate higher. When you vibrate higher, you see
mhm,
these things more and more. It's like I call it like it's like being in a video game. You're walking and just like, oh, this and that, and you start connecting things. And yeah.
yeah. And there's very solid research that says it's a participative universe. I love that way of looking at it. So what you put into it, you get more back.
Hmm.
So, and on a very simple level, you can look at the psychology studies of you buy a red car, suddenly there's red cars everywhere. So attention. So to your point of what you do for your frequency is you try and keep your emotional vibration higher, You try and keep your attention focused on more peace, harmony, love, non-judgment. You try and keep your physical form in a higher vibration, dancing, singing, things that bring us into um, not a hyper false high state that will crash. I mean, of course, there's ebbs and flows and everything, but you're talking about a steady thing of practices, regularly being aware of your another favorite saying is your energy hygiene. I love that.
Yeah.
What
For
is the
me, it's sport.
frequency?
For
Yeah,
me,
what is
it's
the
sport.
energy food you're taking in?
Yeah.
You know? Is it the
Mm.
toxic news 24/7? Are you being out in nature? Are you counting your blessings through the day regularly? Because if you focus on the positive for 30 seconds, it sticks in your brain. And if you don't, it never happened.
Yeah. It's like
So,
food, what you
yeah.
put in. Yeah.
So this is a little bit, I mean, I could go on for hours about this stuff.
Yeah.
So this is
Okay.
a sampling of that. Um, and to take this into, as you said, what does science know?
Okay.
And what can we see ourselves? So there's something called sacred geometry, which is kind of the study of how things replicate throughout nature. And they
Mhm.
break down to these basics. And then, that's the form that we can see. And then underneath that, of course, there's quarks and neutrons and plasma and other stuff. But these are really good things to understand that these different shapes, the tetrahedron, octahedron, hexagon, icosahedron, dodecahedron, um, are some really important shapes because they're connected to different elements. And elements form everything. Your breath, your has water in it. You have minerals in salts in the water and things in the air. Like we don't think about it very often, but we're constantly interacting on these levels and created out of these things. So fire has these geometries. There's another one that we'll look at. I don't think I pulled the slide, but they also have related frequencies that to them. There's some really, the solfeggio frequencies are super fascinating if you haven't looked into that, but it's based on the science of music and pattern and shape and
This
what
is
that, how,
something I'm researching. I do a lot of different things I research at a time. So it depends like what the occasion is, right? But this is
yeah.
something that I'm really interested in. But
This
like,
is
can
also
you just
really,
explain a couple things here, okay?
yeah,
Fire, air, earth, water, and ether. Because ether,
yes.
it's still now, they don't really, how do you say, recognize it. Most of
Yeah.
it, mainstream media, okay, if you forget about mainstream media or
Yeah.
mainstream education or whatever,
Mhm.
yes, there are people still they get attacked when they talk
Oh,
about
definitely.
Ether, right? So it's
Yeah.
like I posted on Facebook about Ether and it was flagged. I mean, there's a lot of yeah, it was just a picture of Ether, and then they're like, oh yeah, this is I don't know what the expressions they have. Basically, they said,
False
yeah,
science or
yeah,
something.
false something, yeah. And I'm like, really? And I actually took time and I wrote them, and I'm like, here's a couple of links. Here you go. Go educate. Literally, I told them, go educate yourself, right?
Nice.
So, so please, can you just explain because each one what it means? Because for each is for each part.
Okay,
Okay.
so I mean, I wouldn't say a specialist in this, but the idea is that we have different building blocks and you have these different elements, and they are both physical and metaphysical. So, fire is about transformation as well as the physical. combustion or this kind of certain geometry. Air is about mind and ideas, as well as, the um, physical air, that we breathe, and it has a, certain chemistry and
Mhm.
component. But when you're looking at these things from more of a metaphysical standpoint, they're not just the Newtonian science, because Newtonian science is, again, one layer of that stack of 9 to 12 dimensions. So, um, I'm excited because Barbara Clow, who did the Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions, she's put out, if you're curious about this, she's just published a new book with the most recent science, because she literally wrote about this 30 years ago
Wow.
and channeled it from the Palladians. And she was dead on. She was talking about string theory before it was proven. And she layers it. I'm going to show one of her graphics that they're nestled together and they're at different frequency bands. So you can think of these things as more complex. And when, if you're, if you're clever enough, you can actually see these within each other. So
Okay.
these shapes fit together and make other shapes. I didn't put that slide in, but these are the ones that things break down to as sort of like prime numbers or something.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
then so Earth is about, that solidity, the tangible, the 3D, the physical Earth, our, bodily health. We've got
Mhm.
water, which tends to be associated with emotions and the flow of things. Um, More complicated and holds a lot of information. If you think about this, this is the most faces. And when you look at Veda Austin's work, you'll understand water is perhaps the like memory of spirit, universe. Like it's literally the substance water is something like 30 million years old. It's come from space. The water on Earth has been around in space and it's been recycled here.
And it
So
has memory. And it
stuff
has
like this
memory.
is like, and it brings imprints in.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
like doing a positive intention with your water changes its molecular structure. Therefore, you can absorb it better. I mean, this is a fascinating thing when I understood why prayer before meals made a difference. And I'm like, if someone had taken the religious stuff out of it and said,
Yeah.
hey, if you put your energy and intention towards the food, you're starting to digest it before it gets into your system. You're also clearing it of anything it's picked up from angry people handling it or other stuff. And so, again, this is back to that participatory universe we live in and how we're operating with it. There's some great hacks. And then ether is the um, finer, more spiritual, or, it might be considered more like the plasma. It has the lightest of it. And this particular shape, I forget what the geometry in it is, but it's one of the strongest shapes, and it has many of the others in it. So, yeah, the dodecahedron is a very very important shape in nature and how things build. So yeah, that's
Beautiful.
my bit of information about it. There's so much out there to explore with this stuff. But I mean, ether, again, people used to think the earth was flat and yell at people. We used to think we didn't revolve around the sun. So when they make these statements, you need to be really cautious about the fact that there are whole spectrums of light and sound that our instruments prove exist that we can't see. And there's another fact that I like to remember is that out of all the information our body takes in, do you know how much we consciously recognize and process?
5%. Okay.
0.001%. So I'm really curious what the world's like. And the universe is like, because I'm going on not even 1% of data. And that's where intuition comes in because it's the sense, it's the subtleties that have so much information. All that information is coming into your system and under hypnosis can be pulled out. And, some of it's your internal sensations and such. So it's just that our conscious understanding and our linear minds and our egos are very limited. But our souls, our spirit, our unified field, when you go into that, you have infinite information. Like what can fit in, a tiny crystal, a drop of water, you know, it's quantum computing. It's insane. And that's all in us. But we get stuck in the processor up here and think that's the only thing that exists. So I like to say that, when we study all this stuff, it's fun, but we've got to remember that this is science based on 0.001% data.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see these things is like this. Um, it's good that we know all of this, but in the end of the day, you need to feel it. And you
Yeah.
need to, like when you read like you just said, like just this practice, simple practice, like when you drink a water or you eat, and before you drink it, you say whatever you need, like example, okay, my back is healthy, whatever. You just put it
Yeah.
in. You just put it in for,
Yeah.
I think it's 5 to 10 minutes or 5 minutes. You need to actually feel it. Like
Mhm.
like you're putting in good intentions and you drink it. Yeah. And then, or you put like different symbols, right? I have a
Yeah.
water bottle with a light symbol, right?
Yeah.
So and when I started doing, I was like, yeah, whatever, right? A couple of years ago, I started doing this, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And then actually, the water from the tap was not the best quality, right?
Mhm.
And I put it in, and I forgot for a day actually, but usually it works after 10 minutes. And I just drink it, and it was completely different water.
Sweet. If you can taste it.
Yeah, it was completely different water, right? So if these kind of little things can change our daily life, because we don't need to understand like you know dimensions or whatever, majority people, they don't really care, and it's like, but if you can research, just take maybe half an hour, 1 hour, watch one video that talks about it, that shows you proof, scientific proof, that this actually works, and it's like, hey, maybe my life can be better. I can be happier. I can be whatever. If I just say, okay, water, bring me this, whatever. And it's like, in the end of the day, let's make it simple for people like, okay, here it is, one way for you to make your life better or a day better.
Same with being out in nature.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
same.
Like vitamin N. Are you getting your feet in it? And a quick important point is having some contact through natural material to the tree or through your feet. Your feet are your natural grounding point, as you might know from reflexology and things like that, how many meridian points are in your feet. So if you can be on the earth, even like thick wool socks, if you're in a cold place, and or stand on a dry tree trunk if it's messy and muddy, but it really can make a difference. And if that doesn't work, just lean your back against your tree in a natural substance, clothing, because plastic and stuff is an insulator, so you don't get as much. It still works because you're in the general energy field of the tree, because again, it extends out from the main area. But just, yeah, simple things. So this is fun because this shows a way that these hertz, as you see, as they go up, the patterns get more complicated. And you can see basics here of circles and triangles and, you know, the, the crosses that we saw in the ley lines, waves. So certain things repeat in these different hertz. And these are frequencies that are basically a wave pattern and how fast it's going through a drum surface with
Yeah,
light colored sand on a dark drum surface. And they just put the speaker, so it's
I saw it.
playing a specific thing and you can watch it change. This is really fun to watch on videos.
I saw.
Um, but this study of cymatics shows you that sound creates geometry, and geometry is form, and it condenses into matter, and it changes with sound. So this is the thing behind mantra practices, behind going to sound bowls, behind humming, the practice of just humming.
Mm.
Mm, actually, 5 minutes a day of that, super healthy, not attached to any religion or anything, no fancy words. If the if saying the Vedic mantras with all the different sounds is a little complicated, just hum. And just knowing that when you do these things that bring sound and frequency in, what you're also doing is breaking up stagnant patterns. So basically, movement and flexibility and natural homeostasis is health. Rigidity, tightness in your body, your guts being stuck, those things are not healthful. So when you can do things that cause more flow in your system, and this is what's great about knowing the basics, is you can do it with yoga, you can do it with swimming, you can do it with ecstatic dance, you can do it with slow walks and stretches. You can find what works for you, but basically hydration, movement, good sounds, good input, you know. So that's a little bit about
No,
frequencies.
you're completely right. It's a mixture of food, like everything that you mentioned, and being conscious about what you're doing, that's the main thing is like, okay, and not because if I look at from my experience, I was exaggerating. Okay, today I'll do sports, I'll do this, and then it comes like, okay, everything a little bit and just enough, So
Well, and one of the most powerful practices that
yeah,
I've found success with personally and professionally over this long
yeah,
exploration I've had are the micro practices throughout the day. So,
okay.
for example, 3 minutes of meditation 4 times a day gives you the same change in cortisol or your stress hormone as an hour of sitting meditation.
Oh, I love that because I'm not.
I'm not a sitting meditator.
No, I like, oh, Jesus. I love when Becca is doing it, if it's guided meditation,
Yes,
if and I have no issue then
same.
sitting, yeah, I being still, right? But like just doing like that, I was like, no, okay. So 4 times 3, okay, that's it for me now. New mantra.
And Huberman Labs studies on it say 14 minutes total a day is the
Yeah,
medicinal dose. So that's a lot more approachable for a lot of people. I
yeah.
mean, I do think that deeper practices of stillness take you to another place, but again, they can be done through mindful movement, of slow walking, of really being present, of, the mantra practices of like yoga where you're really focused on the poses. So, not everybody's 100% suited to the sitting meditation. I
No.
think we can all get better at it, but yeah.
Yeah, like I can give you experience. Mine is swimming. When I go for long swim,
Yeah.
the there was like not a lot of times. I mean, I did different qigongs, Falun Dafa. I tried a lot of different types of meditation. And
Mhm.
at couple of them, I achieved what I achieved while I was swimming because I just went to this tunnel that I forgot that like I forgot that I did one length, two lengths, 10 minutes. I was completely in this state that I was just swimming. Like I didn't even realize that I was swimming. I was just, I don't know what's the right expression, but
They call it flow state
Yeah,
or
float. I
being
was completely in the
in the
flow.
moment.
Yeah, in a
Hmm.
moment, completely, right? So
Hmm.
for me, it's kind of that what I was always looking, because through qigong exercises or meditation, I went into completely different, like you said, in a different states where I
Yeah.
saw different worlds and stuff like that, and I was just like, okay, so it's a little different from each practice, I would say, for me. I don't know.
Well, and that's why there are different
Yeah.
practices because they can help you access different things.
Mhm.
And we, when Becca goes into the blueprint of our human design, of our astrology, how all these pieces overlap and give us information. I was just diving into one of the bits about how we digest better, and it has to do with energy of digestion, like our surroundings, as well as when we eat and how we eat. And it's different for different people. That's
Mhm.
what's so challenging about, and why you can never just blindly follow anyone because they're not you.
No, no, you need to
You need
figure
to
out. Yeah.
take what works and explore different things. And then some of us are just, nerds about it and love to
Yeah.
learn lots
No,
of different.
I
But,
mean,
I mean, it's also in the seeking of my own wellness, but yeah, if you find something that works, you also don't have to like dump it for the latest fad. If it works for you and your intuition is saying, "Yeah, I've
yeah,
got this nailed," stick
exactly.
with it.
Exactly. What works for you? Where are you at the stage now? What do you do now? What kind of
I
exercise?
mean, some kind of daily practice. So at the
Yeah,
moment, I'm doing some mantras. I always start the day with a short breathing or affirmation, and now I'm doing the mantras. It's varied. I also find the recorded meditations really helpful.
yeah.
I'm aware that if you record your own voice, it's the most powerful. I haven't gotten myself organized to completely do that yet, but it's on my list. Um, but there's a whole study from some very smart people about that. Your subconscious programming is what's running most of our lives. So
Yeah,
you have an access window of that when you wake up. You're in a sort of more of a theta state or a sort of
yeah,
half hypnotic state, and when you go to sleep. So those two windows, I try and really cultivate those. And then, like I said, the micro practices and catching negative thoughts and doing the energetic clearings when I feel like I'm being infringed on, setting the intentions to have my guides and guardians with me to, yeah. And then if I feel something, as we've been talking about in the flame holders group, catch it, shift it then so it doesn't stack up. Um, and nature works for me. I like bicycling. I like walking, hiking. Um, yeah, so some sitting practices, but I don't tend to um, be as good at those.
no.
I try them periodically.
Yeah. I like, just for me it doesn't work, and I'm like, I stopped torturing myself, like just like a long time ago. I'm like, nah, not for me. It's okay.
It's not working. So let's see what else I
Yeah,
have here.
let's
Okay,
go.
so this is fun.
Okay.
So people hear about crop circles, right?
Yeah.
And I really thought that Barbara Hand Clowes,
Can I
I'm sort
just
of
let me
thinking,
just stop you for a
yeah,
second before we go the crop
yeah,
circle, right? So there are many of them.
yeah,
Okay. From your knowledge, I read somewhere not all of them are real.
possibly.
Okay. That's all I meant. Okay. So I
The
saw,
thing is, most of them are way too complex for a
yeah,
human being to pull off in the amount of time they have.
exactly. Yeah.
Also, the fact that when they study the actual grasses inside, where the grass is laid down is like bent, but it's been heated. And they're all laid down symmetrically and they're still growing. They're not broken. So if a human
Oh,
being takes a board and smashes something in a pattern, it's broken.
yeah.
These are very different. So this one that I'm showing here
Okay.
is an actual pattern um from a true um, example of one of these crop circles.
Hmm.
And they have such precision and geometrical, mathematical ratios that are past most people without a PhD in math. Genuinely. Like the exactitude of how this pattern is actually this fractal bubble shape of a torus
Okay.
shrunk down onto the grains. And so this is her interpretation of how she thinks they possibly made. So it's a like either from a surge up through the earth or as something that's come down from the earth or both. There's been reports of orbs of light
Orbs, yeah. That one I
around
heard. Yeah, yeah.
these areas. There's a crop circle museum in the UK that I went to.
Really.
It's so cool. They've got like boards of these and it's amazing. And they show the science and the research and the different speculations. But what I thought was interesting about this and why I brought it in is we're talking about, energy points, sacred geometry, and gates. Well, this one set of pictures kind of ties them together. So if you have a visual that we can see on the earth with this geometry here in the crops, that can be represented in a multidimensional way of this
Yeah.
bubble that would also be under the earth. And this is the different dimensions. So this is the surface of the earth is the 3D, underneath is 2D and 1D. And she believes those are more like the elemental realms. And then the fourth dimension, which we would consider like the astral or something, is again, it's a higher fifth,
Mhm.
sixth, seventh, and it goes on up. So, this isn't necessarily geographically accurate, but it's a visual of showing how
Mhm.
the different shapes and the different levels and vibrations of literally the waves are bigger or smaller, and they do different things in the different
Mhm.
areas.
Mhm.
So, yeah, just a little fun way to
Okay.
think about it.
Yeah, I have one question. So,
Yeah.
how much I know about this is this. So, basically, these crops appear
Mhm.
when Earth or humans, we are ready to receive a new message. These are codes
Yeah.
that, if I'm not mistaken, activate DNA of humans that see this because they show it and they're like, okay, so it's subconsciously or unknown only they activates in us something like that. If
And when you go into the collective
yeah,
quantum field understanding,
yeah,
that crop circle, anywhere it shows up in the planet, because they show up in Peru, they
yeah.
show up in other places, they're not just in the UK.
No, no, they're
It
everywhere.
means that that information is now in the collective field. It has been imprinted
Yeah.
into the field, literally a crop field, but also the energetic
Yeah,
field. And there's, like Marco Poganic does with the art he draws on the side of the stone and then places it in a certain place. It might be actually not so human centric. It might be for the earth. It
yeah,
might be an earth fix that's bubbling up from the inside of her, or it's a message or a code from someone who knows.
exactly,
But I
exactly.
think it's good to kind of also expand it and think, okay, well, it's not just for those that actually see it, because it's just like if you do a collective prayer,
Yeah,
there has been again, scientific verification that you get enough people together focused in a clear enough way, and you can validate that they change the, for example, crime rate in a city for that window of it being focused on. Fascinating. So if that remote sort of stuff is possible, then maybe these kinds of energy things are also doing something. So
I would agree with you. I mean, I believe they're here for better version of us, or
Yeah.
I think they're here for that. So
Some of them are so complicated.
yeah.
And, again, I actually got to walk in an older one in Wiltshire when I was there. There weren't that many when I was there in the summer that were still that you could get to,
Mm,
but the scale of them is massive, you know, and so it would be really hard to do.
okay.
Um, okay, so we have a little bit of time left. Do you want to do a little bit of
Sure.
a meditation? Do you want to talk some more? What are you feeling?
You can explain first of all of this,
Okay,
and then we can do the meditation if you feel like it. No
yeah.
problem.
So,
Never done it on a podcast. So here
okay,
you
all
go.
right, fun. Well, it won't be long.
Okay.
We can do a quick one. So,
Okay.
as we've been talking about, I'm a big believer in experiencing.
Yeah.
And the first thing we do on the planet is breathing. The last thing we do is breathing. So, the first part of any practice is breath, but we'll get to there. First, I want to explain the why I have the pictures and why we have a prompt,
Okay.
because again, there's no difference between space and time. And if you full sensory imagine something, sight, smells, sounds, as much as you can, you have 20% muscle firing as if you're doing it. This is really something to contemplate when you think about watching negative news or horror movies. And that's just all I'll say about it. Because if your body is firing in synchronicity with what you're watching, you need to be thoughtful about that. Um, and these particular places on the planet, like I said, are often cross points of lines. You can see
Mhm.
that visually here. They've built in the stone, back ages ago. They literally dug this big ditch
Mm.
and put up these massive stones. They're really not completely sure how they got them up because they're huge. Um, and with supposedly, oxes and carts and,
Yeah,
copper
like
tools.
pyramids. Yeah, with
Yeah,
the
it's another one of those.
yeah,
But
yeah.
this
Okay.
Avebury is one of the world's largest henges, and they call them as the stone circles. They're aligned to the different solstice, the sun and the directions. And this particular one is on a cross of the Michael and Mary line, so the masculine, feminine. And it's so big, these are houses. Like this is a massive barn. And then because, we're, later on folks come along and they're like, "Oh, stones, let's break them up and do some stuff." You're like, "Oh my God, really?" And some people were like, "Oh, natural pasture. I'll just put a house in the middle." So we've kind of lost our touch with the sacred. In the old days, we probably would have never done that because we would have been like, "Whoa, interesting vibes here.
Or
Don't live here."
or they have super energy because they have a living there, like depends.
Well, I've lived in various places. Byron Bay in Australia is a sacred energy point. My father
Okay.
lived in Sedona in the US, which is
Okay.
a vortex point. And my experience is it's like living in the middle of a whirlwind. If you stay completely centered, you're fine. But the minute you go off, whereas if you're in a calmer area without all that whirl, yeah.
It's better.
So I personally am a fan of visiting these places when you have an intention or a desire to connect and elevate. You can live in them, but it takes a certain person and a certain kind of practice.
Okay.
So, this area is beautiful, and I find it um, how do I say, less tarnished, cleaner than Stonehenge. I've been to both. Stonehenge is amazing. It's visually so impressive and has such history. It is completely surrounded by military installations, which I found fascinating. And it just feels,
Stonehenge.
hmm?
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge, yeah, the center point
So
of this
it's the
cluster.
military round, right?
Like every quarter.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
there's a good reason for that. That because,
gridded.
but
Yeah.
I know it, and if we talk it, probably gonna take it off YouTube. So I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that.
It's just, it's an energy point, and for whatever
Mhm.
reason, there happens to be this stuff there. I was just like a casual, like I was
Yeah,
going to see the henge and I was like, what?
yeah.
They don't talk about this. There's literally all the land around it's bought up by
It's a very
nothing.
special energy point for
Yes,
sure. Yeah,
it's being kept careful.
yeah.
Um, but I found this area to be more open. There's Salisbury Downs near it. There's a Barrow, which is like a long hall that's got amazing acoustics, so much fun to chant in there. So like Glastonbury, this area would be my preference and where we're going to run this trip in April. Amber Booth and I, it's going to be exciting. But this, is one of the things that I've just been able to do as a young person and ever since is I can find ley lines by where the trees are. I just am drawn to them. Sometimes between certain trees, there's a magnification of energy, call it like a tree gate, you know. Um, and these two stones you see on the lower right are the entry to this, and there was a long promenade that up this that led to this. And then these are massive, round, and they have the ditch. But as you come in, this is kind of the entrance. And you would have in the procession come in and probably gone around the circle this way. And then there was an inner circle here, a lot of which has been broken, but you can see a bit of it.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the fascinating things about this stone is it has this amazing little seat. And you can sit here, and then right up above it, there is this hole. And it's like the light just comes down or a drip of water. And it just really kind of, it's like having a rock hug, you know, and it's just, as you can see from my body there, it's massive. And there's two of them, and they're on the edge of this ring, and it just holds um, a really gorgeous energy.
Mhm.
So my offer is that we do just a few minute guided visualization together,
Okay.
and I'd suggest that you either look down or close your eyes.
Okay.
We're going to do a few steps to it. So we're going to get ourselves grounded, and then we'll just connect to this place. You can hold the picture of it or the overhead picture, or if you've happened to been there yourself. Um, Again, if you can really settle into the idea and the energy, that's helpful. But just being in the moment of quiet with yourself is also good. So breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth a little bit longer. But now with this next breath, imagining your attention going into your heart area while you breathe. And now breathing into your heart, feeling that warmth and bringing the energy a little bit higher to just above where your heart chakra would be, to your higher heart. Imagining a beautiful sparkling center of warmth there, however you feel that. Breathing into that. And on the out breath, breathing it down into the earth, to the crystal core of the earth, whatever that means to you, connecting to that 13th gate chakra. And just really feeling that silver plasma, the connection, whatever you feel there. And just imagining you're letting all the tension from your body drain off you like flecks of black into this plasma, being cradled by this earth energy, cosmic energies. Then drawing that energy up just below your feet and imagining a silver disc forming about a meter wide from your feet, spreading out around you, creating this shield, your own personal platform as we all walk around in our own energy bubble. Breathing into that again, and now drawing that energy up through from the earth through the platform up into your belly area. Really grounding yourself in your creativity and your womb, male or female, your creative center there, or other. However your body is, you have a creative center in this part of it. Drawing up into the heart. Now, increasing the glow, the activation, the energy, however you feel that. Breathing up now again, up through into your third eye, center of your brain. And connecting up to the source of all that is, the central sun. However you imagine that energy connects you to source, God, whatever works for you. We're going to ask and intend to create a 48-dimensional shield, call upon our guards and guardians to activate all the elements of the spiritual court and all of the helpers that would be useful. Command it now, and so it is. And drawing this energy from above you, it might be green or silver or gold, blue, bringing that down through the top of your head, down through your body, through your heart, through your belly, into the earth. And just again, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Now we're going to connect to our plasma body. So drawing our energy into our heart area. You don't need to know what that is necessarily, but this is the Merkaba, the sacred shape that our soul can connect to other places in. Might be in your dream travels or however you do that. Just knowing that you have a part of you that is less dense, that can connect anywhere in the world or the cosmos, past space and time. And we're calling upon this part of ourselves now inside our 48-dimensional shield and Merkaba, and connecting together as a group and connecting to these stones and this presence of Everberry, giving thanks for this experience, whatever it brings to you, settling yourself into this stone, just really being there, maybe feeling some wind, smelling the dirt, having the birds chirping, and then just settling into the energy of the space. This magnificent gate, channel, presence. It's holding this beautiful frequency for us to connect to. Perhaps you want to explore down into the earth and what's there. Maybe you want to explore how this can connect you to your higher self, to your guides. Maybe there's codes, downloads waiting for you. Just continuing some nice steady breaths. Full relaxed breaths in and out. However is comfortable for you, feeling into your heart. Allowing yourself to really be in this place. Calling the parts of yourself home, gathering yourself into your heart, welcoming back with unconditional love and acceptance. Wherever these parts of ourselves have wandered, whatever they might have done, whatever we might have participated in any way or frequency of being out of balance, anything not in alignment with source. Taking a deep breath and witnessing, releasing any judgment, any tightness. Again, letting all of that just melt into the earth. be recycled. And just giving yourselves a few moments to gather impressions, maybe a word or a picture or a sense. There's many different ways of knowing. For me, it's a deep peace in this moment. And just bringing yourself back into whatever space your body is occupying, bringing that plasma body back to your heart. Feeling your way to the chair, grounding back to the earth and to central sun from your physical location. Wiggling your fingers and toes a little bit. Just being back with a group that will see this, that will participate in this group experience, knowing again that we are all connected. How did that feel?
Great.
Oh, it's such a lovely energy there. It just feels sweet to me. Very
Yeah.
grounded. What did you notice? Anything you feel like sharing?
Um, just like I just got a reminder that I just need to a little bit relax. Last week was intense.
Okay,
I
yeah.
was just reminded that all is well. So it's just like take a deep breath, Matt, basically. So
hmm
it was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I was feeling this was a peaceful moment for me too. So
Mhm.
this is a very grounded stone, let me tell you. When you sit in it, it's like, oh, yeah, rock hug. Um, so yeah, I just thanks for inviting me. It's been a
Yeah, I think this is a perfect
conversation.
ending. Oh yeah, please, this is okay. All right. So Valerie, after some internet connection issues, we are back. So your trip, please tell us
Yeah.
what's going on.
So,
And
a fellow flame holder, Amber Booth, and I have been excited. Both of us have been to Glastonbury and Avebury and love the place and have a lot of similar passions, so we decided to collaborate on this trip.
Mhm.
So it's going to be the first Dragon Tracks in-person tour. We did the virtual one to Peru, and so I'm very excited to announce that this is going to be an in-person small group event. There's going to be 8 of us total. It'll be in April 25th to 27th, and we're going to be doing amazing stuff with activating dragon codes, using the essence oils to do activations. We're going to be teaching about the ley lines in the area and having in-person practice of grid work, how to sense it, how to do dowsing, doing some amazing mantra work. So we have a workshop room reserved. So we're going to have that on the Friday and then an opening ceremony in the Margaret Chapel. So we're going to have it all to ourselves to do some magical things together. And then getting to explore the tour and go to Avebury and do eat some amazing food and be with wonderful people. So I won't spoil everything, but the details will be on both of our websites. So ValerieHoglan.com and Amber Booth's information will be available as well. I don't want to misquote her website,
Yeah,
so I'll give you the
I'll
link.
put everything so
So if
people
you're
will see.
curious, if you want to contact us and just say you're interested, we can talk. We both do different kinds of work. I do everything from traditional coaching and therapy through energy work, seals clearing, offer some of these experiences on how to do these guided visualizations. I have lots of locations to offer. I've traveled a lot. So yeah, just really Love sharing this kind of information. I'm passionate about helping people understand how to be healthier and happier with simple tips, but also very practical ones. So, um, magic of groups is incredible, and we'd love to see you in some form, whether it's a question or a session or a trip.
Perfect. Valerie, thank you for your time. Great presentation and talk and conversation, and we can do that again at some point.
Yeah, I have more in the archives.
Oh, I'm sure you have, and we will definitely do it. And until next time, I'll see you soon in
It's
Flame
been really
Global
fun.
Group.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.